I feel like this episode is mixing in some pretty good insights we have with like super obvious stuff that everybody takes for granted.
Possibly, yeah,
Yeah.
quite probably.
You can work less hard if you buy less things.
What we wanted to talk about was trying to set priorities. When should you say yes to stuff? When should you say no to things? And
Hmm.
how do you decide when to say yes or no? And how do you go about doing it?
Yeah, that's definitely, I hope, relevant to to most people because like it'd kind of suck if you never have the opportunity to do anything.
I mean, if you don't, then you should probably be going out and actively finding more opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, that if you don't have opportunities to do anything, then stop listening. All you have to do, like right now, this won't apply to you. Just go outside and like do more things, I guess.
Yeah. You have to actively go and find your opportunities.
Hmm. I totally get what you're talking about because I've always been someone who tries to like keep up with lots of things at once, like multiple sports and multiple hobbies and lots of things like that. I've never really joined too many like clubs. Like my old roommate, he was like part of like a Christian association and then like an event thing that they planned every year, which was like basically like almost a job, but
Yeah.
he didn't get paid for it. Also did like some business networking stuff. That's never really been something for me. I've never like gotten caught up in like doing all these business and organization stuff. It's just like hobbies and sports and more social or personal things, I guess.
Do you find that that gets like almost overwhelming at times, or is it because that it's personal stuff you can kind of put it off more?
Well, like I'll give an example. Like
Yeah, yes, please.
in high school, I think it was grade 12. For at one point, I was on the wrestling team, so that was 3 times a week practice, and then doing taekwondo twice a week, and then also doing piano lessons once or twice a week, and also had a job at Food Basics. I think
Mm.
I worked twice a week, usually weekends. And then also usually once a week I would walk my neighbor's dog. So it's nothing incredibly demanding, but it's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it all adds up that
I
you
have a
have to
feeling
spend.
that for you, it would be more like my old roommate.
It hasn't been in the past, but over the past maybe year or so, maybe like even more so 6 months, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Busy toasting and whatnot.
Yeah, actually. I was just looking through my time reports because I try to track the time that I spend working on different things.
Yeah.
And over the past months, I think I spent about twice as much time on Toastmasters as I did on school,
Wow.
which is both a
Ye-
commentary on the commitment to Toastmasters and how much I just cannot give a shit about school right now.
Okay, because I was gonna say, are you doing too much Toastmasters or not enough school or a little both?
It's like 10 to 15 hours a week of school,
Like
which,
including classes?
yeah.
Wow. Well, it does make sense though, right? When you're switching, you're like, whatever.
Yeah. Like I still have to pass them, but
Yeah.
that's the main goal there. But yeah, the reason that this came up is because I'm still a little undecided on something that I did commit to recently that I think I do want to continue with because it sounds like a lot of fun. But it's just like, okay, this is one more thing onto the pile.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
you're like, this better be good.
exactly? So I already have like the university courses, the college applications, trying to do all the healthy things like work out, eat, sleep, all
Not
that kind
die.
of stuff. And then I've got the position at Ryerson Toastmasters and this podcast, and I want to get back into YouTube videos. And then, see, the other day, I decided, hey, I'm going to go and check out the Toastmasters Club at the college I'm going to go to at Humber, just to see what it's like, how the vibe is, if I want to join it. Turns out they are in need of some people to take on leadership roles, and I ended up volunteering to be one of them.
Oh, and you've started already?
Well, I applied. I think they're gonna see if anyone else applies over the next week or two, but I don't think anyone else is gonna apply. I kind of doubt it, so I probably have the position.
Would that not start once you actually switch schools?
So Toastmasters whenever it's part of like a school club, it's in a little like bit of a gray zone, or it's partly a school club, but it's partly like its own organization. It's a branch of Toastmasters International. So you
Yeah.
can just go to any club and join or present. Some will have requirements like that you have to get voted in by the members, and some will enforce you have to be a student here, but most that I've found won't. Like at Ryerson, you don't have to be a Ryerson student to join the club.
Yeah.
We have one guy who's from George Brown, I think.
Oh, okay. There's no George Brown Toastmasters? Or?
I assume there is, but he goes to ours because his brother is at Ryerson.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Makes sense. His brother probably like got him into the cult.
Yeah, more or less.
So are you gonna keep being exec at the Ryerson one when you leave? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Well, with Toastmasters, there's a thing called the Distinguished Club Program, which is they give every club like a series of goals to meet in terms of like education, are people doing speeches, in terms of your membership and a couple administration things. And if you meet enough of those, you become a distinguished club. And that is something that Ryerson, over the past 10 years that it's existed, has never managed to get. And I'm actually not sure if the Humber Club has or not. I kind of doubt it. So it's like, okay, I could bring both of these clubs to their first Distinguished Toastmasters Award in the decade of each of their existence. Sounds like
that'd be cool. But like, what do you get from that?
I would say experience and the ability to say that.
So I guess a resume as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a hell of a resume booster.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first, I personally led the clubs to do this. That would be so sick. So that is the main idea. Also, I'm finding that Toastmasters, it's the most like job-like thing that I've ever done.
Haven't you had you have a job?
I have had jobs before, yeah, but they've never felt like real jobs, like proper white-collar kind of jobs. But with Toastmasters, there's all sorts of like, especially with the Ryerson one, there's all sorts of like divisions for the team, and you have to like hold meetings and meet deadlines and stuff like that, and go out and like market and like recruit people and things like that. So it feels like a real job.
That I can relate to that feeling for my job now, working with the government. I like when I got there, they're like, "This is your cubicle. Here's your computer." I'm like, "Oh, this is just like mine," and they're like, "Yeah, you can just take it home if you want. Doesn't really matter." And I'm like, "Wow!" And they're like, "This is your desk chair," and I'm like, "Oh my god, wow!"
Solid.
So and it's like, yeah, you got meetings and shit, and I'm just like, "Oh, when are my hours?" And they're like, just like show up for work, I guess. Like just whenever. Like it could be 7:30 to 3:30. It could be 9 to 5 if you want.
Oh, that's
it could be 9:30 to 5:30 if you're a crazy person.
Shit, that's wild.
So yeah, I totally feel that. It's just like, oh, I'm an adult. Yeah.
I don't mind it too much, the restrictions of it, because I don't actually have to go anywhere for like 8 hours. I can just get work done wherever, other than for meetings, which is sick.
Yeah. And meetings are what, once a week?
Yeah. Plus anything that I have to hold to organize specific things.
What would you say makes a commitment worth it to like a club or a job or something?
So I was trying to think about this for the past little bit, since whenever you said you were available to speak today.
I'll have my people speak to your people.
And what I figured out so far is that I think you have to start out with an overarching, maybe not goal, but a theme that you want to do. Are you familiar with the concept of like having a yearly theme?
Not at all.
Okay. So this is a neat thing that I found about on a podcast called Cortex.
Okay.
It's basically throughout the year, you have an overarching theme, and this isn't any particular goal or anything. People, what were some of the examples? The year of organization, or year of stabilization or rebuilding, or independence, I've heard, or things like that. And then you need obviously a little bit more of an explanation behind them, a little bit more of significance.
Yeah, the Ottawa Senators are in a year of rebuilding, so I get that.
Yeah, actually, it's actually the same idea. So like the Sens, they say they're rebuilding, and then So any action that they can take over the next year that helps them in rebuilding to be stronger during the next year would be something to take on.
Yeah.
So it's the
Like
same idea.
like take a risk on young players that like
Exactly.
could
Yeah.
be really good assets, or like trade away like players who haven't reached their full potential, and they don't think will reach the potential and stuff like that.
Exactly. Whereas if their yearly theme was, we're going for the cup this year, lads, it would be completely opposite actions that they need to take. They
Yeah.
should be signing some even older players with lots of experience who've been through it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keeping,
Yeah.
just getting all the points they can, keeping everyone
Yeah.
healthy at the end too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that you want to start off with just kind of an overarching goal. And what I've
mhm.
got so far, I think I talked about last podcast maybe, was to just become the best marketer or spokesperson that I can be over the next year, a little bit more than a year. I figure over the course of the diploma.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes total sense, especially with like Toastmasters. It's basically like how
Exactly.
to just talk good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Would you say that like this podcast is like practice for Toastmasters? Like it like helps, or does it feel totally different?
I think it does help. One really concrete thing that I was thinking about the other day was that when I showed up to the club and I had my table topics, the like impromptu speech thing, I participated in that. They're like, wow, you have really good control over your filler words. And I was thinking, yeah, because every time I use one, I have to edit the goddamn thing
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot more careful or better about not using the uhs or ums and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, everybody hates hearing their own voice. So hearing your own voice going, would probably get somewhat irritating if you're
Yeah,
listening to it a lot.
definitely. But then it is also kind of good just in that it's often the same topics. We talk a lot about self improvement stuff here, which is the
Yeah.
same thing that often comes up at Toastmasters meeting. It
Oh,
depends on the clubs and the people, but
yeah. It's like what they're interested in, like each
yeah,
individual.
exactly.
Do you vote on it, or?
No. Or
Hmm.
actually, maybe some clubs have like a weekly theme that you try and
Hmm.
follow. Ours don't. All the speeches are individual. You kind of pick your own thing based on the Pathways
Okay.
program. It's a little
Yeah.
educational system. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that this podcast for me is an example of a commitment that paid off, because when you're like, do you want to do it? And we were like talking about it. I'm like, okay, so that's like what, like an hour or two, probably like 2 hours a week. And then like, like what would I get out of it? What would I put into it? And I find that one thing I didn't expect to get out of it was just like thinking more like objectively about like just living life. For instance, why am I taking on said commitment, and what's it gonna do for me? It's gonna make me happier? Is it gonna make
Mhm.
me more organized? Stuff like that. And just like having a stance on those topics is pretty nifty.
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I've heard from people on podcasts before. They say, yeah, just because I'm on a podcast, I'm a lot more like, what do you call it? Introspective, or I think a lot more deeply about topics, or have
Yeah.
a lot more self awareness.
Well, I would say, yeah, it's not thinking more deeply. It's just like thinking more like concisely, like on a path that you can explain to somebody else,
That's very true. Yeah.
in more of an organized manner. If you can't, if you just have an idea on something but you can't explain it to somebody, then it's a lot of good that does.
Yeah, no, I
It,
agree. I've gotten a lot better at that too.
yeah, and it is purely making it this part of like making it just a discussion, because I have no idea how many people listen. So it's like, and I'm not doing it like it's not like there's like live reaction like there is public speaking. So
That's
it's
very
literally
true.
just
Yeah.
like speaking to someone and hearing what they have to say and then reciprocating what you have to say along like a certain topic.
Unless we wanted to make it live,
Yeah, that'd be
which
cool.
sounds sick, but maybe one day.
That'd be a little vibe check. No, but that would actually be cool.
It would. Yeah. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
enjoy that. But yeah, I think you raised a good point in there during your little explanation. Was that my next idea was, after something fits within your theme, is how much time is it going to take up? You
Yeah.
really need to think about that, because some
That
commitments can get massive.
usually the case when you're thinking of taking on a new commitment, it's usually worthwhile, but it's just, is it more worthwhile than the other stuff you're doing is? Because you probably, or like, it's very possible that you just straight up won't have the time to do that and another one.
That's very true. You have to consider both how much time it's going to be and how much value you're going to get out of it compared to what you're already doing. Is it worth
Yeah.
taking something else out or stopping something else to just pick up this other activity?
That's pretty much it. You just hit the nail on the head pretty much. It's like, hey, is it like, can I do it? Just like, can I and should I, basically?
Yeah, pretty much.
You say you have like themes for years and stuff. You said this one is like making yourself the best like marketer you can.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, are you going to take on like another one in the next calendar year and put like, keep doing the marketing thing like until the end of your program, but like take on a new sort of theme for 2020 or not?
So when I say become the best marketer, I was more so thinking about having that be the 2021.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's got a head
I'm
start.
kind of impatient. Yeah, I just like, why wait? You know,
Yeah.
I don't have a current one that I want to finish up or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's
'Cause-
not like anything I do now doesn't count towards it, right? Like this
Yeah.
is my own goal.
You're like, okay, I
Set
could
the
do these
rules.
really productive things, but the calendar year hasn't started yet, so
So maybe not.
I'll just wait. I'll just
Yeah.
wait like 4 months.
I'll just goof off until then. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
Gonna real quick start a new theme and finish it by the end of the year. No.
Gonna be fluent in Swahili.
There you go. Yep.
Race to the fluency. I don't know if I could do that.
Have a theme?
Have a
Or-
theme for a whole year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause like I can't think of something that I've like based everything I do around for like an entire year, really. Except for I guess like when I started exercising, I was
Mhm.
pretty into that, like just health for
Mhm.
like a bit. But it wasn't like everything I did, I guess.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be everything. That's just something to make decisions with, like have it in the back of your mind. Like,
Okay.
is this something that would go well with this theme?
Yeah. You could probably
But-
like expand your social circle. That
Yeah,
could be one.
that's a good one.
Or do better academically
Mhm.
or in your job, get a higher level in your job or something.
Oh, one that was funny was Mike, one of the guys in the podcast. He had a
Yeah.
year of adulting.
All
which-
right. Sounds
Yeah.
horrible.
There were a couple of things in there. One, buy a house. Two, get
Ew.
married. And three, learn to drive a car.
How old is he?
I think like 30 or 40. He just lives in downtown London all his life, so he's never needed to know how to drive a car.
Oh, okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah. City
Yeah, like
lads.
if you live in a city, you don't really need to know how to drive a car. I mean, I guess maybe it would be convenient sometimes. Did he own a car?
I don't think so.
Huh.
He didn't actually end up doing that. He got the other
Yeah,
two
'cause-
down, but
It doesn't seem incredibly important. Like,
I think he did want to go do stuff in other cities or something like that, relatively nearby. Yeah,
he didn't want a
I forget
bus.
why exactly, but he decided it would be a good thing to know how to do.
did he at least have like a fiance or a girlfriend at the time?
Yes, he did have a girlfriend,
Okay.
and
It's like-
they were planning to get married. He just established that as one of the main goals because it takes a hell of a lot of time, and it's just acknowledging that this is one of the most important things that he's doing that year, and that
Yeah.
it's okay that it's taking so much time and that it's hella stressful.
Yeah.
You shouldn't expect to do all those things like getting a house and getting married and still be like excelling at or like putting all sorts of new stuff into your work, you know?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like this is what we're focusing on now.
Yeah.
You can other areas you should maintain but don't have to like expand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I could totally see something like that. Like with the broad topics, like just
Yeah.
like maturing was basically that, like
Yeah.
adulting, but like
Or one of the
Yeah.
other ones was, I think, stabilization for him. So he is the co-founder of a company. They'd been going for like 5 years. They've been going really well. And
Yeah.
he said, all right, we're not going to focus on growth anymore. We're just going to focus on making sure our foundation's good.
Hmm.
basically, for the company so that they could grow later on. But for now, that's not the focus. Just we got to make sure everything's good.
Oh, see, as someone who doesn't know anything about like business or
Mhm.
companies and stuff, I just figured, like, is it possible to grow too quickly?
Yes. I mean, it's very easy to scale with, say, like some kind of internet business, which is what they were doing, but you still need a lot of, we'll call it infrastructure. I think that's still what you call it when it's digital. Like you need all sorts of systems in place. Like they run their own version of Patreon for all their podcasts. Like he runs a podcast network, so he has to handle all the payments for
Uh,
all of those things, coordinate with all the sponsors and things. So it's just making sure all like the infrastructure was good and built up. Because, you know, when you have so many people, like the demands for the on the website, on like merchandise, on all the payment things, you got to make sure that everything's good.
sounds intense.
I think the better or the more easy to understand example is like a physical store or product. Like if you make a bunch of socks and people freaking love the socks, but you just don't have the infrastructure to put out enough of them, they're always going to be sold out. And now everybody's going to be like, they're already sold out. Who cares? You're not
Ah,
going to
okay.
buy them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah. So you got to build up to match the demand for your stuff.
And I noticed you said Patreon. Wow, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. Patreon's a neat place. You guys should, all the listeners should go check it out at patreon.com/standardhumans.
Yeah,
That's the website for Patreon.
I just sort of found it interesting on like what you need to live and what you don't.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of the ancient Greek philosopher called Diogenes?
That rings a bell. Who is he? What do you have to say?
He was a cynic, I believe. And he was like he tried to have the least possible stuff that you needed to live. Like I
Okay.
think he just begged for his food. Like I'm pretty sure he was homeless. Um,
Okay.
and he didn't have like any possessions, I don't think. Like I think he had like a bowl, like a
Okay.
monk.
Hmm.
And then he would try to like take everything down to the smallest amount, I guess. So he'd be like, commitments, why don't you just do zero? And because he just literally like was a beggar, like
Okay.
intentionally. Like he sort of preached like you should have like the least amount of things possible, like commitments, like possessions, stuff like that. Like he obviously wasn't a glutton,
Yeah.
so he didn't have a house. So that's like, I guess, the extreme opposite view of what we're talking about to taking on too many things. But do you think it's possible to take on too few?
Hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say probably, yeah. I
Because
mean,
he was,
we're going to very quickly get into the meaning of life here and what's the point of existence.
uh,
But
my dude, we live in a society.
yeah, but if let's say the point is to create things or to change the world in some way or to do
Yeah.
something with life, then I think you would inherently need some kind of commitments. You don't mean many, but
Yeah.
you want to do something, I would think. At least for the sake of not being bored out of your mind.
Yeah. I think he just debated and stuff most of the time.
Fair enough.
'Cause,
There's a commitment.
yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
remember one famous debate he did. I think it was Aristotle who had his definition of what a human is.
Okay.
It was a featherless biped. What is his
Okay.
definition of
Fair
what a
enough.
human is? Um, because they didn't have monkeys or
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, running lizards or anything like that
Yeah.
back in ancient Greece. So what Diogenes, like the way sort of his mind worked was I believe he just like pointed out that a plucked chicken is a featherless biped and is therefore a human.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah. Fair
Yeah,
enough. Yeah.
which is kind of facts.
It's true.
Featherless chickens are humans.
Yeah. That's fair.
I don't know. I always find it interesting the concept of just like, leading like the super stoic, like lifestyle, I guess. Just
Hmm.
having like very minimal thing. Like the idea of like being a monk or like a
Okay.
hermit sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
for a period of time, like that'd be interesting.
That would definitely be interesting. Yeah. I feel like that would probably be a good tradition to spread to the rest of the world. Like to just go without the things, at least for a little
Yeah.
while, a few
Well,
months.
well, in South Asia, Southeast Asia, I think I said before, it is
Oh yeah,
quite
that's what I meant.
common
Yeah.
to become a monk for like 3 months when you are between high school, uni age.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be good because then that would probably help you also see what things or commitments you actually need. If you've
Mm.
been in a frame of mind where you have zero things or commitments, and so then you would actually it would sort of be a control period to tell like how each thing affects you. Like so
Hmm.
you do nothing, and then let's say you start working back at your old job afterwards, and you're like, oh, this I'm way less happy than when I was doing nothing. So you could stop that and get a new job. Or like say living
Oh,
in a
that's
specific
fair.
place, you could be like, oh, this makes me more happy than there, so I'll keep living here. This is cool.
Oh, that's
And stuff like that.
interesting. Yeah. It's basically the concept of nothingness is almost the baseline, and some commitments are even worse than that,
Yeah.
than doing nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Because like some jobs and stuff, I certainly remember like ones I've worked. Like sometimes you would just be sitting there and there'd be no customers or anything, and you're like, I would rather do nothing because then at least I could sit instead of stand,
Fair.
like and not be working, you know.
This kind of reminds me of Thoreau's New Economics.
I don't know that.
I haven't actually read the book, but I heard it described in another book. I've been meaning
Okay.
to read it, but
Wow. What other book did you hear described in?
it was it might have been Digital Minimalism, actually.
Oh, okay. Shout
Yeah.
out to digital minimalism again.
Either that or the Icarus Deception. I think it was Digital Minimalism, though.
Okay.
Anyways, what he did, Thoreau, he went, this is, what time frame is this? Like 100 to 200 years ago, I think.
Okay.
He decided to just go and live in a cabin by the woods for a year and track all of his expenses, like down
Okay.
to the like exact cent, and he like wrote them all down. I think that's like a big part of the book is just like, or a section of the book is just his like logs of expenses and things.
Oh, okay.
And basically what he found out was that he could survive in the cabin by working the equivalent of like a day of work every week. So
Hmm.
just by working one day every week, he could sustain his lifestyle and be free for the other 6 days that week to do
To
whatever he wanted.
jerk.
Say there were a lot of people who would be working 5, 6, 7 days hard every single time, like 8 to 12 hours or
Hmm.
whatnot, or farmers who would go and buy like a nice set of curtains or something, and they'd cost however many dollars, I don't remember, but it'd be the
Hmm.
equivalent of several days of work, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, if you just don't buy the curtains in the first place, you can just not work those days.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
evens out.
That's
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. Where I mean, obviously everybody does. They're like, oh, if I just buy a less nice house or car, or don't buy a car, stuff like that, then sure you won't have the thing, but it might be nicer to just have the peace of mind of like not being in debt or like not needing to work so crazy hard or something.
Definitely. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes you sort of feel it the opposite, like when money's good and it's like you got a bit of a surplus going on. You're like, oh, let me buy something. I got some money going around, whatever.
Hmm.
But that's sort of still the exact same thing. It's like if you this is just if you don't really need it, then you could just relax and chill and just let that be there.
Yeah,
You know, as
exactly.
security for when money's not as good and stuff. I feel like this episode is mixing in some pretty good insights we have with like super obvious stuff that everybody takes for granted.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite probably.
You can work less hard if you buy less things. Very, very true. Or
Yeah.
like hey, if you
No, but I think
should
the
just
extremeness of the example, like just working one day, right?
the
A
thing that's
week.
really cool to me is that he actually did it.
Yeah,
Because everybody
exactly.
thinks about it, like everybody like knows it, but it's like you until you actually do it, like then you'll know it a lot better once you have.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
See, that sort of thing I would sort of like to do. I wouldn't want to track all my expenses and stuff because,
Okay.
you know, I don't really wouldn't really want to, but just like not it wouldn't be like in a money based thing. It would just be like in a doing stuff based thing. It would just be like minimal work, live out in the boonies,
I mean, I feel
you
like you
know?
should at least track the money a little bit so you make sure you're not
Oh
like
yeah, like
falling behind kind of thing.
yeah, enough to like like I wouldn't like make like spreadsheets and stuff, but I would make sure like I was
Mhm.
at least breaking even
Yeah, fair enough.
so that I do not starve.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
good plan. But yeah, back to the yearly themes. I was thinking that would be a cool episode. I guess I explained most of my thing now. I might be able to think
Yeah.
of some more specific things. But do you think you might be able to figure one out? I don't know.
Hmm.
I can give another example. I
Yeah.
think, if I'm not completely messing this up, one of Gray's years was the year of branching out or something along those lines. He was
Oh,
just
okay.
trying to try new things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened with that was that for one of his videos, he or thought up the idea of actually going to the place that he was talking about and being there for a while.
Yeah.
He'd never like thought about, or he wouldn't have ever considered actually going to a place because it's completely unnecessary for making the video, right? You can find all the information online. But he decided, you know what? No, I'm trying new things. I'll actually
Yeah.
go and I will write some of the video while I'm there in the
Yeah.
place, absorbing the environment. And he said, yeah, it was a lot more expensive than making a normal video would be, and it was a
Of
lot more
course.
time consuming. I don't know if it was worth it, but it was an interesting experiment. It was a good time.
Yeah. And yeah, I totally get that. Like experience something is totally different than just knowing all the things about it. I believe that we have covered the topic, but
I think so, yeah.
what would you like to discuss for the next one? And how's it looking? We were talking about getting like a Reddit up in order to like vote on what the next topic would be and stuff like that.
Hello, everyone. Future Aiden here. I just wanted to quickly let you all know that the Standard Humans Reddit is fully operational and ready to go. We're going to be posting there whenever there's a new episode, and I just made a thread asking for questions. We want to do a Q&A episode at some point, or maybe just sprinkle them in throughout a few episodes. So if you have any questions at all when you're listening to these episodes, let us know on the Reddit, and we will probably maybe get back to you on that. Also, if we ever do voting again for an episode topic, which I do want to do probably a few times, at least next year, it will likely be on the Reddit and on the Patreon. So if you want to get in on that, make sure you go join both of those mediums.
Anyway, so everyone, goodbye.
I'm glad that you now know how to prioritize your life. You're welcome.
Yeah, 100%. You're all good now.
Yeah, definitely.
Your priorities should be 100% in check.
You're freaking welcome, lads.